Yeah, I mean, look, here's the problem. I personally, I actually do trust to some large extent the people who are running the NSA, many of whom I know, and I trust the underlying faith of the Obama administration to a greater extent than I think my colleague does. But but the point is that they are acquiring capabilities that, in the wrong hands, become very powerful.
On this episode of Just Informed Talk, the latest new Q post point us back to Edward Snowden and what exactly happened when all of that information, that classified top secret information about all the NSA's programs was released, and much, much more. Hi, I'm Craig, and welcome to Just Informed Talk. I always start by saying thank you to everybody who's hit that subscribe button. If you haven't, please come here to the landing page, click the big red subscribe button, make sure you hit the bell for notifications to be notified when these videos get posted. This is where we are picking up right here. This is right where we left off. The last post we covered was Q Post 3015, and we're picking up right here at Q Post 3016. Like always, I always tell you guys to come back here and watch these videos if you want to get caught up on all the latest Q posts, because there's a lot of great information there, and watch this video. If you're not sure what QAnon is, definitely come here and watch this video about it. It'll give you all the information that you need. So today, we're going to start right where we left off, and we're just going to go right into it. First, it's a Sarah Carter tweet about this speech that Nancy Pelosi was giving, and it's about this H.R. 1 for the People Act, where she was basically making comments that insinuated that they're trying to pass legislation to protect the right of non-citizens to vote. As crazy as this sounds, this is like a real piece of legislation, and it links to this piece and basically gives you the clip you can watch over here on Fox and Friends. But look, this is what Q says. The real reason they want open borders, follow the MAPS. And I think MAPS might mean minor attracted persons, but there could be another acronym I'm missing. But it says illegal immigrants first, Americans last. They're afraid of losing power forever. They should be. Welcome to the D Party Q. So, yeah, that's pretty much self-explanatory. And you guys see what's going on. You guys can see right through that. The next one here is this Twitter post of this black Trump supporter who gives this incredible little speech, and I want you guys to hear it. It's just kind of a response, but a great one nonetheless.
I have a Trump 2016 sticker on my car, or Trump Make America Great Again, and people ask me, they'll see me get out the car, and they'll go, "Is that your car?" And I go, "Yeah, it's my car." With the Trump sticker, I go, "Yeah." They go, "You're a Trump supporter?" I go, "Yeah, aren't you?" So it's just crazy, man. It's just amazing that I actually have to justify it. And the only reason they ask those questions is because of the color of my skin. The crazy part is, we use the words like discrimination and racism. We hear them all the time, but the reality of it is, I think I'm a victim of discrimination just by the fact that I'm not going with the crowd. The fact that I'm thinking for myself and decide to become a conservative and vote for President Trump, vote for the Republican ticket. I'm a disgrace to my party. Some people think I'm a disgrace to the history of blacks in America, and that's just ridiculous. I was born in 1971. I wasn't a victim of Jim Crow. I didn't have to sit in the back of a bus. I didn't have to do any of that. I mean, I think I've grown up in a country where words like that. And I'm not saying that racism doesn't exist, but the reality of it, the way that most people want you to think about it, especially people on the left and the Democratic Party, is that it's happening every day. That I can't walk down the street without the fear of some police officer shooting me is ridiculous. I mean, I grew up. I have a family. I'm a business owner, and I don't want my daughters to grow up in a country believing that. And that's another reason why we're here today. And we want to just be an example and give other people permission to say, you know what, I'm willing to step out there too, because I don't agree with that stuff, no matter what they say.
Yeah, and that is perfect, spot on. And Q basically just says, the Great Awakening attempts to divide will fail. Patriots have no skin color, Q. To which I could not agree and concur more. So it says here, the next one is another tweet. And this one is pretty epic too. This woman basically lays it all out. I'm going to show you a little bit of this too. So, and this is obviously a Latina woman who is, basically just speaking it how it is, speaking the truth.
I work when everything's given to us. We need to stop accepting so many illegals. And I'm calling from the area of El Paso, Texas, which we have 5 borders of entry. And every day there's hundreds and hundreds of illegals. Here we have attorneys that help them with the visas. They even pay for their visas. We have churches, places where they're immediately, once they're over here, they get housing, they get shelter, they get food, they get a bed, they get medical attention, they even get educated so they can stay. Well, let me tell you, I worked very hard all my life, and you ought to see how I'm living now. Why? Because my money that I earned all through these years is given to all these people that are not even from here. I'm fed up of it, just like a lot of people here in El Paso area are fed up. And God bless you all, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor.
So again, I mean, just spot on points being made by the people there living it, you know, that these are individuals living through this, and they understand the importance of everything this movement represents with President Trump. And again, QAnon, says the Great Awakening attempts to divide will fail. Patriots have no skin color. Q. Epic. Love it. So the next post is actually going into this NSA.gov puzzle. I guess this would be for kids or whatever. And the funny thing about it is it references war games. This is just something that we're always referencing here on the QAnon boards with the "shall we play a game" reference to the computer, which was like some sort of supercomputer that was programmed to play these war scenario theories, like to play out these different theories and to play tic-tac-toe, I guess. And then if you look, you know, it has the full explanation. It's a challenge. It was from May 18th or May 15th of 2018. And Q basically points to this. I haven't found any other real significance to this post other than I'm sure that Serial Brain 2 or somebody's going to really go into the gematria of it, which could be something significant. But Q just says, shall we play a game? It says, how many tweets has POTUS forwarded in the past 12 hours? Primary topics, March Madness. Do you have your brackets filled in? Q. So first of all, there's a few things you got to glean off of this in the beginning. I looked, if you go look at President Trump's Twitter, he retweeted a bunch of people. And from the point of that post, within 12 hours, would have been, as far as I can find, 11 posts. Now, with that in mind, 11 is kind of a non-specific number unless you think about it in the context of the next one. 11 is a primary number, and 11 is the possibility of I think one of the interesting theories that was kicked around over on the Anon boards was whether or not this was a reference to how many indictments are going to be unsealed coming up here when the FISA gets declassified. Will there be 11 unsealed indictments for different persons involved who, and you could probably make a pretty quick list of who those might be. So I think that's something to consider. And then, of course, with the March Madness, I think this is kind of like Q telling us, like, okay, if President Trump's basically telling us through this tweet in a veiled way that there are 11 people who are going to be up for indictment once the latest batch of unsealed indictments comes down, then it's like in an NCAA, you guys know what March Madness is, the NCAA basketball, all the college basketball teams get into a big tournament. And usually, you know, if you have work, you guys are familiar with this, where you have a bracket that you fill in, which is picking winners and losers out of like however many teams are involved in that tournament, right? And it's a bracket challenge. So here would be an example of like brackets, as in, you know, you have teams here and then 2 teams will play and then the winner will play whoever wins this game, and then this winner will move on, and so on and so forth. But imagine that Q is basically telling us you could put people in these brackets to say they're very likely, you know, it's like, have you taken your guesses on who is going to be in those brackets? I could put out a bunch of guesses right now, but I would say it's going to be people like Andrew McCabe, Peter Strzok, Lisa Page, James Baker, James Comey, and many, many more. I mean, I don't really go down all the list right now, but that's just what I see, and that's really what Q is saying there. in my opinion. Now, the next one is pretty interesting. Q points to a tweet from Jordan Sather. I know him not very well, but we're acquaintances. Great guy, does great work on following this info. And this is pretty cool. So he found this article from back in 2016 about In-Q-Tel. Now, you guys know we've been talking about In-Q-Tel for quite some time. The headline of the article being, the CIA is investing in firms that mine your tweets and Instagram photos. Now, I don't think any of this really shocks us, but when you read the full depth of what they're investing in through this In-Q-Tel company, it should very much terrify you. One of the parts of this story that stood out the most to me is, well, first of all, it's a story that basically goes through how they contract and or own companies that specialize in collecting different sets of metadata in mass. Meaning, for instance, this Geofeedia is a company that we'll talk about here because I think it's one of the more important ones, because they specialize in collecting geotagged social media messages from platforms such as Twitter and Instagram, right? And if you keep scrolling through the article, you can read about all these different companies and what they do. Certain ones follow social media, certain ones follow your location, certain ones follow every different aspect of what you do digitally that can be tracked. And they do other things as well. They have different enterprises and companies that do different things. But what I was interested by is this: the executive at Geofeedia basically told the reporter that his company could predict the potential for violence at Black Lives Matter protests just by using the location and sentiment of tweets. Guthman said the technology could gauge sentiment by attaching positive and negative points to certain phrases while measuring proximity of words to certain words. Do you see what they're doing? It's predictive. And that's what's even more terrifying about the technology that's being referred to. And these companies, what they all do, not just one, but what they all do when combined, if they were all owned and operated by an agency like the Clown Agency and others or whoever, anyone could take this, you put it in aggregate, and it's a predictive tool that can monitor in real time and make predictive estimations in order to basically allow them to control social movements. Now imagine, we've heard Q talk about, and there's been reports of different instances where different movements, social movements, were co-opted and or undermined by bad actors that enter and then, basically commit acts of violence or do other things, and they act as agitators in order to derail a movement. Now, if you have this kind of stuff, imagine the power that you would have. But anyway, this all goes back to Snowden here. It says, Q says, why did @Snowden only attack the NSA? Where did @Snowden work prior to the NSA? Why did @Snowden pick Russia as his safe place? What events occurred directly after release of NSA packs? How do you avoid data privacy laws? Charter of NSA, Charter of Agency, DARPA, LifeLog, Facebook. Define surveillance state. A surveillance state is a country where the government engages in pervasive surveillance of large numbers of its citizens and visitors. Matters of national security. Accepted reality. Why was the NSA targeted? Why was the agency protected, sheltered? Q. So why did Snowden only attack the NSA? It's been alleged that he was working at the CIA for about 3 years prior to joining the NSA. He was working with the CIA over at the farm. And they were saying, why did he pick Russia? Well, Q's going to allude to this later, that this was all part of an elaborate plot in order to derail the NSA, who is basically primarily ran in a military style. It's under the purview of different military officials, and it's directly under the purview of the president. So this intelligence organization was basically starting to figure out the corruption and global corruption that was going on from within our government out into the global world. And these people who had co-opted and infiltrated our government, allegedly, were actually working on the behalf of foreign actors in a lot of cases, and they were being surveilled, and they were having their metadata picked up, and they basically figured everything out. Now, if you're a military officer running an organization that's slowly uncovering the fact that your government's been subverted by multiple foreign national foreign national actors who have basically co-opted certain parts of your government, have outright engaged in many different crimes, well, what would you do? Well, obviously, this goes back to the meeting that President Trump had with Admiral Rogers. And when it says what events occurred directly after the release of the NSA packs, there was basically a complete degradation of the ability of the NSA, these kind of military-based organization that's following the information and starting to slowly figure out about this corruption, to continue their investigations and their surveillance of this corrupt deep state, if you will. And then it says, how do you avoid data privacy laws? Obviously, it stands to reason that the clowns need to move into other places in order to operate effectively to circumvent the law. We talked about the Five Eyes on here, how they task other foreign intelligence services to spy on their own people, so that to spy on the other countries' people and then share that data, thereby avoiding breaching those laws. But moreoverly, avoiding the data privacy laws can even go into what's going on with the social media and Facebook and the third-party doctrine of the Fourth Amendment. There's just a lot there if you guys want to unpack that, but I'll just leave that to you. But the next one is the charter of the NSA and charter of the agency. I think the difference here, Q's pointed to before, the NSA is chartered to be able to surveil both domestically and foreignly, or domestically and foreign entities, but the agency, the clowns, are only allowed to work foreign intelligence assets because they're not meant to be a domestic surveillance organization. But apparently that's what they've become, as they've gotten multiple former clowns now running for positions in Congress. I mean, guys, this is real. We need to wake up to this. But it says DARPA, LifeLog, Facebook. If you could put all these together, that kind of goes back to the privacy laws and what I was talking about with the third-party doctrine and the Fourth Amendment. But it is very interesting. And then it says, define surveillance state. Well, it says a surveillance state is a country where the government engages in pervasive surveillance. And that's where we've kind of entered. And yeah, so the NSA was targeted for a good reason. If you think about this theoretically. It was to hinder their ability to affect a national security throughout our country. So that's what you want to look at. Now, the next one here is this New York Times article, which basically is talking about the security breach that Edward Snowden did and its incredible effect on the NSA and the world at large, and the credibility of our country to a degree. On the global stage. But if you actually read through this article, it's from back in November 2017. It's a really long article. You're more than welcome to read it. I'll leave a link. But it basically just talks about how everything went down, how the people involved were affected, and how globally it affected our country, and how there was hacking attacks that were formed off of the technology that was exploited through these the stealing of this classified information and public release of it, and all of the unintended and probably intended consequences are pretty much covered in this story. And Q just says, at Snowden, parades or restraints, 2019 in the metaphorical killbox Q. But here's the funny thing. I don't know what this is saying besides, do you want to be welcomed home in a pair of handcuffs or with a ticker tape parade? As in, do you want to become an entity for good, or do you want to I don't know, be a part of this, complicit in this evil that's been going on? Because it's no coincidence that he ended up in Russia. And when you actually look at this in its totality, he might have been just working for bigger fish, right? So you might have the small fish idea, but at the same time, he's become an influencer. And this is where we're going to talk about John Perry Barlow coming up next. But when you and this John Perry Barlow was the guy you guys saw in the beginning clip with Julian Assange, and it begs the question, as an influencer, there's just so many different aspects to what they can control in society and how people think. So is it better for us to bring them home and bring them on board, or is it going to be the opposite? I'm pretty much thinking that if you betray your country in that regard, I don't know where there's much room for redemption, but you never know. And in my heart, as a Christian, there's always room for redemption, right? That's definitely my belief. But Q responds to his own post here saying, connect the dots. At Snowden release code words, NSA keys. At Snowden travels to Russia, shadow brokers release actual code, NSA keys. Shadow brokers originate in Russia. Can you make the connection why at Snowden went to Russia? Can you make the connection who provided the source code to the shadow brokers? Define spook, define shadow. Do spooks hide in the shadows? Stand strong, Gina. Q. So this is obviously a reference to the clowns. The clowns are the spooks. That's a reference to them. And when Q is saying the shadows here, look, this is something we've talked about. So what happened was he was sent basically to his final destination, which was in Russia. Now Q's alluding to the fact that it wasn't even him releasing the full extent of the information. It was actually given to shadow brokers, and these shadow brokers were probably clowns operating out of Russia, right? Making backdoor deals with the Russians. I don't know how much easier it can be to break down. And Gina right now, who was the deputy director of the clowns, you can see here that the message is being sent for her to stand strong against what seems to be coming here. And Q again responds to his own post saying, who was agency director from 2012 to 2016? Agency director, John Perry Barlow. How did we know prior to Q? And this is referring to the fact that basically like a week before John Perry Barlow died, tragically, or suddenly at least, he was mentioned in a Q post, right? And then he just happened to die of a heart attack not too long thereafter. And it's saying, how did they know prior? Well, what the insinuation that's being made is that was the shadow broker, right? JPB. That was the shadow broker who was working with the agency director, which was who? John Brennan, our old favorite raisin-faced turd muffin, was working with Perry Barlow. And that's how they were trying to basically, co-opt the outside technological influencers, these progressive, people. And this all goes back to Secure Drop and who was running that. But that's kind of what we're just meant to glean off of this, I think, out of everything else, or out of anything, or out of what we have here. So yeah, I mean, that's it. The next one here is a tweet from you-know-who, Edward Snowden. This is from back in May of 2018, where he says, note, Gina Haspel participated in a torture program that involved beating an innocent pregnant woman's stomach. And I don't want to read some of this stuff. This is really disgusting. But yeah, that was his actual quote. And what Q wants us to say is, were they all banking on HRC to win? You never thought she would lose, banking on Brennan to bring you home. You never expected a new director to be appointed. Agency rogue elements still in control of operation. No, Gina X UK division open attacks in 3UDHQ. It says, what do you have left to sell to Russia to retain your safety and security? Welcome home at Snowden. Q. So first of all, they never thought she'd lose, right? That's really the takeaway here. And this was the whole plan. I mean, imagine this. Back in 2013, they activate Snowden. To do what? And when I say they, I mean the left deep state establishment, or the left and right, I would say deep state establishment. They activate Snowden to take down the NSA so they could do all of these things like the Iran deal and funnel all this money out of the country into these slush funds and do all of this crazy corruption. Then, banking on the fact that HRC would win, they figured that Brennan would still be there. The raisin-faced turd muffin would still be running the clowns. And then they could just say, oh, well, we'll bring you back. It's okay, Snowden. Don't worry. You taught us a lesson about growing, and we're really thankful. So this is really seeming to be what the plan is that was told to or what is being alluded to here by Q. And it's crazy because you think about it. Wow, right? And then Gina came in and she's basically broken the ties with the people who are running it, this operation through the deep state. So, I mean, look, there's no rogue element still controlling this. So, you're pretty much done for, buddy. That's the way I'll put it. But this is really the question is what do you have left to sell to Russia to retain your safety and security? Because at some point, Russia is going to realize that keeping Snowden is not worth it. And that's going to be the day that you're going to be coming back to us, buddy. We'll leave it there. Anyway, the next one is talking about this older Q post from January of 2018. We're talking about Snowden. The clock is ticking. How's Russia? Mr. Contractor. Freedom of the Press. John Perry Barlow. And at freedom.press, secure drop whistleblowers. Secure drop equals clowns in America. Nobody is safe Q. So don't forget this, right? This post was on January 27th, 2018. And I was going to pull this up earlier, but I figured since Q covered it, we'll just talk about it. John Perry Barlow died a little over a week after that post was put up. 11 days. Oh no. See, now that makes sense. It's 11 days. Oh wow, that's so clear. Talk about like having a one of those eureka moments here on the broadcast. But yeah, that makes perfect sense now. That's what the 11 is referring to. And when I talk about the 11, it's talking about what we talked about earlier in this post where Q said, how many tweets has POTUS forwarded in the past 12 hours? 11. That's the difference here between those 2 days. So is this a marker for 11 days? Guys, wow. Let me know what you think down in the comments. I'd love to hear it. That's pretty much where we're going to leave it. I want to say thank you guys for joining me here. A few ways you can help out the channel. Stick around for a minute if you guys want to help. That does a big deal. Best way to do it is to come here, hit the subscribe button, make sure you hit the bell for notifications, and there's a thumbs up button at the bottom of this video. Go ahead and hit that if you guys like what you see here and want more of this. Also, make sure you watch these videos if you want to get caught up. And I have a Patreon if you guys want to help out. It's a crowdfunding website. It's a way for you to help keep the content coming here, and I need your help. So thank you to everybody who comes here and checks this out. It's a monthly donation. There'll be a link in the description, patreon.com/justinformtalk. Also, I have a GoFundMe if you want to make a one-time donation. That's also a cool way you can help. Links to that will be in the description as well as to justinformnews.com. That's justinformnews.com. It's the official website for Just Informed Talk, where you get links to all the Q stuff, you get links to different news websites, and you get live news feeds, plus you get all of the latest videos right here. So that's a good tool for you guys to use. And don't forget to come find me over here on Twitter at JustinFormU. You guys should definitely come check me out here and get in all my cool, crazy posts and tweets, and all the videos get posted there as well. So that's a cool thing to go check out. So before we go, we do something at the end of each episode called God's Grace is Greater. It's where we talk about God's grace and how it is truly greater. So for today's scripture, we're actually going to read out of the book of Philippians, chapter 2, verses 12 through 18. And this is talking about how we can all be a light in the world. And I talk about this a lot. So this is a great verse. I always love sharing. It says, "So then, my dear friends, just as you have always obeyed, not only in my presence, but now even more in my absence, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. For it is God who is working in you, enabling you both to will and to act for his good purpose. Do everything without grumbling and arguing, so that you may be blameless and pure, children of God who are faultless in a crooked and perverted generation, among whom you shine like stars in the world. Hold firmly the message of life. Then I can boast in the day of Christ that I didn't run in vain or labor for nothing. But even if I am poured out as a drink offering on the sacrifice and service of your faith, I am glad and rejoice with all of you. In the same way, you also rejoice and share your joy with me." And what is that talking about? I mean, to me, it's just talking about how when we humble ourselves and work hard to be God's most incredible servants, and we share that faith and we share that incredible gift that we've been given with others, the gift that is not just intended for us, but the whole world, That's how we spread that glory of God throughout the world. And even if, as it says here, even if we are poured out as a drink offering just in the hope of getting one person to come close to that faith, is it not worth it? Is that not why we are here on this earth? And I want to leave you there, and I want to say thank you guys for watching this episode of Just Informed Talk. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. If you like what you saw here, make sure you hit the like button. It's the thumbs up at the bottom of the video. It all helps out the channel big time, but that's going to be it for me. I want to say thank you for watching Just Informed Talk. My name is Craig. Godspeed and God bless each and every one of you, Patriots.